Academic Affairs Committee will come to order. First order of business is the roll call. Regent Johnson.
Present.
Provost Sukuri. Provost Jonathan Wickard.
Present.
Provost Jim Wolpart.
Present.
Chief Academic Officer Dr. Rachel Boone.
Present.
And Regent Butker is present. The next item of business we have is the consent agenda with items for approval or recommendation approval for the full board. Are there any requests to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda of the Academic Affairs Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Regent Johnson. Second, Provost Wickard. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is approved. Next, we have a request for a new center, and I'll ask Provost Wickard to speak to us about this.
Thank you, Regent Butker. With this docket item, Iowa State University is requesting permission from the board to create the National Institute of Antimicrobial Resistance Research and Education. And as noted in the docket, we were selected to host this institution based on a competitive selection process by the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities and by the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges. And the Institute obviously includes folks at Iowa State University, but partners from the University of Iowa, from University of Nebraska, the Mayo Clinic, and the USDA's Agricultural Research Service. So it is a very collaborative program. As we all know, antibiotics are one of the greatest discoveries of humankind and have resulted in many life-saving interventions for infectious diseases. But at the same time, the value of antibiotics is rapidly diminishing due to the drastic increase in antimicrobial resistance, which threatens both human and animal health. And the challenge of this issue led to a joint national task force on antimicrobial resistance in production agriculture, which in turn led to the recommendation for a national institute being housed by Iowa State University. So initially, the institute will have a staff of 4. It'll be led by Professor Paul Plummer from our College of Veterinary Medicine, and funds to establish the institute over the next 3-year period are being provided by Iowa State University and by the University of Nebraska. During this startup period, we expect to have the institute move to become self-sufficient within the 3-year period based on external funding. Creating this institute has received all the necessary internal approvals at the university, and we are very pleased to have the opportunity to host this very important national research initiative.
Great. It sounds very exciting, and I love to hear the collaboration between various institutions. Do you have a physical location of where it's going to be held?
Yes, it'll be based in our College of Veterinary Medicine complex.
In the complex there. Are there any other questions or comments?
Very strong support, fantastic center.
Good.
Great model.
I mean, I think it's just awesome that it's going to be here. So if there's no objections, then the Academic Affairs Committee will recommend approval of this request.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, then, Provost Curry will present a request for a new Bachelor of Education degrees at the University of Iowa.
Yes, I'd like to invite Associate Provost Tanya Utenholman to make the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The University of Iowa College of Education is seeking approval for 7 new majors to be conferred with the existing BA in Education degree in the areas of art, English, foreign language, mathematics, music, science, and social studies education. No new courses or no new faculty are involved, as the new majors acknowledge coursework already being completed in fulfillment of the state-approved teacher education program. so students will continue to complete their respective content majors through the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences toward a class degree while concurrently completing the majors being proposed, ensuring that teacher candidates are highly qualified in their content areas while also documenting their completion of an additional major associated with the BA in Education in order to qualify for state teaching licensure. If approved, the College of Education would begin conferring these majors with the BA in Education degree in fall of 2019.
Are there comments or from,
It's important to note that these degrees, these courses and programs already exist at the university. They're currently tracks and they're breaking them out. So strong support from the University of Northern Iowa.
great.
I just have one
Regent
question.
Johnson.
I'm assuming there are a lot of students that will choose to take two majors to specialize in two areas. Is that
Yep,
able to be done in a timely manner and everything?
Yes,
Wonderful.
and it's actually, right now, there are students who are doing this, they just are not getting their bachelor's degree. And so, yes, it can be completed as is in a timely manner.
Wonderful, that's great to hear, thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, then the Academic Affairs Committee will recommend approval of this request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Their next request, if recognize Provost Curry again to share some information with us about a request to name the department at the university.
So the University of Iowa is requesting that the Department of Biomedical Engineering be named the Roy J. Carver Department of Biomedical Engineering in recognition of the Roy J. Carver Charitable Trust's generous support of the department. Over the past 2 decades, the Carver Trust has provided the department with support for laboratories, research, and faculty. They also recently made a $12 million commitment to support a major initiative in respiratory and pulmonary biomedical engineering. So this transformational commitment will allow our department to pursue its goal of becoming a global leader in the area of pulmonary and respiratory biomedical engineering. Will also help the department expand its doctoral program by recruiting top PhD students, accelerate faculty hiring, retain our current outstanding faculty members, and enhance research that will bring life-changing discoveries to people across the nation and around the world. And this initiative extends beyond the department to foster important collaborative opportunities across campus.
Thank you. We are really indebted to the Carver Trust. Very appreciate their generosity so much. So are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, this new program request will be forwarded to the full board for consideration on the consent agenda today. Next, I'll recognize Dr. Rachel Boone here to present the annual academic program review report.
Thank you, Regent Bucker. And I will just quickly refer you to the docket item where there's a listing and description of the process as well as the departments that received reviews in 2017-18. I would just quickly emphasize that this process is one that meets board policy, and it entails both a self-study within the department as well as external reviews from knowledgeable peers nationally who can come in and really be part of the continuous improvement process within these departments. In all cases, there are multiple levels of review. After the fact, within each institution, there are action plans generated, and your docket item includes some of the key findings and highlights from some of these reviews. So I'd be happy to take any questions, but I would also refer questions to the provost if you should have any.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. Move on then to the presentation from UNI. Provost Wolpert, would you like to introduce
Thank you.
the presentation?
The University of Northern Iowa Partnership for Computer Science Teacher Preparation is led by Ben Schaefer, an associate professor, and Sarah Diesberg, an assistant professor, both in the Department of Computer Science at the university. In response to a state movement to incorporate computer science education into the K-12 curriculum, the University of Northern Iowa has worked to partner with school districts across the state to pilot materials that will spread to a statewide network. They've developed computer science professional development materials for both in-service and pre-service teachers. Dr. Schaefer has been working with computer science outreach to Iowa's K-12 teachers and their students since 2009 and has served on several state and national K-12 computer science committees. He and Dr. Diesberg were awarded the 2015 National Center for Women and Information Technology Excellence Award for their body of work in developing engaging CSI materials for their students. Dr. Diesberg's research interests lie in security and privacy issues and the use of emerging technologies in the classroom. She founded the Women in Computing Group at the University of Northern Iowa in 2014. She is also the winner of the 2016 Technology Association of Iowa Women of Innovation Award in the Academic Innovation and Leadership category. Their collaborative partnership is funded through a grant from the National Science Foundation.
Thank you, Provost Walpert. Thank you for having us here today. I'm very pleased to be here to talk with you about computer science education in the state of Iowa and the role that UNI is playing in that initiative. To give you a little bit of a background so you understand the work that we're doing, computer science is the fastest growing subject in K-12 education. Between 2017 and 2018, the number of students taking the AP exam in computer science grew by 50%. The reasons behind this rapid growth are many, but probably the biggest of these is the fact that computer science is a necessary skill in today's society. You all have probably 2 or 3 computers within arm's reach of you right now between your phones and your laptops, right? Computers are everywhere, and they're changing the way people perform their jobs. A World Economic Forum report published early this year, predicts that computers will do more than 50% of all workplace tasks by the year 2025. Now, that may sound dire and like careers are in jeopardy, but in fact, what we see happening is that people will be working alongside of computers, right? Surgeons and assembly line workers will be working with robotics. The same report says that while 75 million jobs may be lost due to these computers in the workforce, 133 million brand new jobs will be created as a result of it. So with this in mind, it is increasingly essential that we educate our students, both in Iowa and nationwide, to understand the fundamentals of computer science. In Iowa, K-12 CS education was probably advanced the furthest with the passing of Senate File 247 in 2017. Then Governor Branstad signed a bill which included 3 significant charges to the state of Iowa. Number 1, the creation of CS endorsements for K-12 education for Iowa teaching licenses. Up until that time, CS was not an endorsement in Iowa. Unlike English and mathematics, where you had to be an expert and have an endorsement to teach the subject, that was not true in computer science. Anybody with a valid license could teach. In fact, there was not an endorsement at all. That changed in April of this year when the State Board of Educational Examiners passed the CS endorsement in the state of Iowa. Number 2, the adoption of educational standards, K-12. A working group was convened this spring in Des Moines that met for over 5 months to evaluate and recommend to the statewide recommend to the state K-12-wide standards for educations. These lay a clear expectation of what is and is not computer science. Things like Word and Excel that have traditionally been labeled computer science are not, and making sure that the school districts in Iowa understood what it was. I had the good fortune of serving on that committee along with several other representatives of the Board of Regents, including Jason Pontius. Number 3, that each accredited high school should offer at least 1 high-quality computer science class by the fall of 2019. I'm going to pause on that because herein lies the problem and motivates the work that we're doing. You see, we have a real chicken and egg problem evolving here in Iowa. In order to have high-quality computer science courses offered in every school, you have to have high-quality computer science teachers who know and understand the discipline. But where do those teachers come from? With no endorsement in our past in Iowa, there's been little incentive to gain the specialized training necessary to be a computer science teacher. So what this means is Iowa's facing a real dilemma right now. Most districts actually want to be offering computer science. They recognize the need for this, but they also are having a really difficult time finding the people who can teach those kind of classes. Fortunately, UNI has been anticipating this problem for several years. Dr. Dietzberg and myself and our third colleague, Dr. Philip East, have spent the last 2 years planning for the shift that we saw coming. We wanted to be ready to launch an active CS education program here at UNI, but not only on campus, but statewide. Thus, when the Board of Educational Examiners passed this endorsement in April, we were already ready with our proposed coursework. And in fact, in May, our coursework was approved by the BOEE to allow teachers in Iowa to receive the endorsement on their license. And as of last week, we're the only post-secondary institution in Iowa that has that pathway approved by the Board of Educational Examiners. I'm very proud of the fact that this program was not simply cobbled together from existing courses at UNI that we would offer our majors, but instead were designed with teachers and their end students in mind, and were built from the ground up, and are a mixture of both content in computer science, but rigorous information on standards and teaching and learning in pedagogy. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Sarah to talk about the specifics of our program.
Sure, I'll pick it up from here. So in February of 2017, we put together an NSF proposal to apply for the call of Computer Science for All in the NSF RPP program. In the spring of 2018, we were awarded a $300,000 pilot grant to train in-service high school teachers in the state of Iowa towards teaching these quality computer science courses. The RPP acronym here is a really important part of the award. It stands for Researcher Practitioner Partnership, which means that we are to establish key and long-lasting partnerships with relevant educational entities in the area. After a brief advertising and selection period, we chose to partner with 31 school districts, and you can see those 31 represented on the map. As a part of this partnership, we agree to fully fund at least one high school teacher from each of these high schools to take our courses. More importantly, the school districts then also agreed to teach a high-quality computer science course at the high school level sometime in the next 2 years. We concentrated our initial efforts with and around the Central Rivers AEA, or Area Education Agency. But as you can see on the map, we also accepted school districts outside of Central Rivers into our initial cohort of partnerships. The demand was just that great. We also strategically partnered with NCWIT, which is the National Center for Women in Information Technology. The computer science field stereotypically lacks women and minorities. And NCWIT is assisting us in contributing supportive practices to our teachers, as well as helping us train administrators and guidance counselors at these high schools about how to not only encourage women and minorities to take these courses, but all students to take these valuable computer science classes. As I mentioned before, just training teachers is not enough. Our partnership has a multi-pronged approach. We want to prepare Iowa teachers to receive the new computer science endorsement. So this means they'll take our classes and be able to provide their students with a solid foundation in computer science, not just programming, but computer science at large. They can use any curriculum that's appropriate to their district. And importantly, they can adapt to new technological developments that often occur in computer science, having a broad technological background. Teachers aren't the only ones responsible for student success, so we're also running workshops in conjunction with NCWIT to help prepare administrators and guidance counselors. And then finally, of course, since we're the researchers, the R part of the RPP, we will also be researching on the efficacy of our developed courses and ability of the teachers to teach in the high school classrooms. We put together 5 brand new courses directly mapped to the Board of Education standards towards the State of Iowa computer science endorsement. Our grant is currently paying for the first 4 courses. They teach computer programming, but they also teach broader real-world application concepts like database and networking. And they also give teachers effective methods to teach this material. All right. So we plan to expand our partnership past the first cohort of teachers to encompass the state of Iowa. We already have pilot money funded through the NSF. We're currently in talks with other donors to support a second cohort of high school teachers to start right away this summer due to the demand. Next year, we plan to apply to the NSF for a larger grant to facilitate a decentralized, statewide rollout of this program, leveraging local partners, other universities, technology businesses, and AEAs in the state of Iowa. Thank you for your attention.
Any questions?
Thank you. It really sounds exciting, and I commend you for your work in this area. Regent Lindemeyer.
But I commend you too. I think this is long overdue, and it's great for the state. How are you going to deliver this? Because your target audience are people that are employed initially, is that right? So will it be on campus, or are you doing it through the AEAs, or?
So our initial pilot right now is working with a combination of online and face-to-face work. The program that Sarah explained takes place over 3 summers and the intervening school years. And so teachers are coming to campus infrequently, but coming to campus from time to time to meet with their cohort, to build those relationships. Part of our rollout is how we partner with folks like Drake, Iowa State, the AEAs around the state to deliver that in a location that is accessible to them, rather than making folks from Sioux City come all the way to Cedar Falls to receive that on-campus component.
Regent Bates.
Thank you. So this gets into the high school to be taught. Do you see this ever being a mandatory course, or is this will be a course as an option?
So the way the state law was written, there's a requirement that schools be offering a course like this in their high schools, but it's one of those things. It's a soft requirement that doesn't seem to be enforced at the moment, in part because the state recognizes that it becomes an unfunded mandate at that point, and the training is a real issue.
Okay, I just see it as a great program that you're doing. Thank you.
Any other? Yes.
Yes, I'm wondering what you're seeing in the K-12 schools and in the districts in terms of lack of maybe the technology resources to offer the courses. I mean, it's one thing, the trained teachers, but it seems there's also maybe, are you, the districts reflecting back that they also have a problem with their own technology and capacity to teach?
Very little pushback on that, because much of the technology that's necessary is already in the districts. I mean, you can use a Chromebook, you can use a basic tablet or laptop to do much of what the teachers that we're working with want to be able to do. There's very little specialized equipment that's not already there.
Great.
And the software required is free.
Oh, excellent.
Great.
I have one quick
Yes.
question. This proposal really focused on the high school level classes, is that correct? Is there a push to also try and incorporate that into the middle school level and get kids started earlier so that, when they get to high school, it's not a new foreign concept, because much of that initial learning, like you see 3-year-olds running around working an iPad better than probably all of us at this table. So to get them engaged at that young age, is there movement for that or plans for that in the future?
Yeah, there's several initiatives going on in the state that focus on that. Our program does, at the moment, focus primarily on the high school level, but long-term, we would like to expand to the lower levels. And there are some additional initiatives in the state that are working at that level.
Great. Thank you both for your work. It's incredible. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
presentation. Next, I'll recognize Dr. Boone to share updates on the professional development assignment report.
Thank you, Regent Bucker. This is a report on the professional development assignments that took place during academic year 2017-18. Back in December 2016, the board approved 122 professional development assignments for that coming year. So this report is, as required by policy and by state law, provided to the regents on what was accomplished during that time. We have summaries from each of the faculty members that did a PDA at that time. I'd like to emphasize to the committee and to everybody that we had an incredibly successful, productive, creative time among our faculty who had these assignments. The cost to the institutions was a little over $500,000, but the return based on grants received already has been $4.7 million. So this is an incredible return on that initial investment by the universities. And I'd emphasize they're pending another $40+ million in grants that we have not yet been notified on. So some portion of those will certainly be successful as well. So within a 12-month period to have that, I think any investor anywhere on Wall Street would salivate over the sorts of returns on investment. And I would just add one more thing about the returns. These are incredibly valuable in terms of reputation of the institution to be part of these grants and be producing this research. It's a really important faculty recruitment tool to be able to offer professional development assignments to faculty that we want to bring to our campuses. And importantly, this is a really strong enhancement to the student learning experience, not only because at times students are involved in this work side by side with the faculty members, but also because a lot of this new knowledge that gets created, new methods of doing things gets infused into the curriculum itself and serves all students. So I just will offer this report to you, and again, I will direct any questions to the other folks at the table.
I do have a question.
Yes.
We did 122 this last year.
That's
Yeah.
how many were approved, yes.
Yeah, were approved. How many apply? More over, like even this year, apply over what is actually granted? Anybody know?
I don't have the exact numbers, but it's more than the available slots. So I think we were probably 50% more applications than we had slots.
Okay, and when you say slots, there's a certain limit, is
Right,
there
to the
not?
number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Regent Bucker, I'll just quickly speak to that slots
Okay.
issue. The institutions are given guidance that there's a certain categories of faculty that are eligible for this, and no more than 3% of that total number can be given. So each of the institutions knows well in advance what the maximum number of slots, if you will, are available to grant these.
And similar to Provost Curry there, we have more faculty interested than are actually approved, but it's hard to know the exact number, to be honest, because it's a multi-stage process, and there's multiple levels of approval. So it really begins with a conversation between the faculty member and his or her department chair. The department chair is the supervisor of the faculty member about the possibility of that. And then if the department chair is amenable, then the faculty member will prepare a proposal that the chair would endorse that then moves up to the college where it may or may not be approved, and then up to my office. So there's actually multiple gates, if you will, through the process. But it is a competitive process, as Dr. Boone indicates.
I just want to.
Yes.
Do you want to say something? Thank you. That was a great description. And that first conversation is really critical because we can't harm the instructional capacity. And so, sometimes there may be someone who's eligible and would have a really good idea, but there would not be adequate coverage of the curriculum. And so that's not the year for that person to apply.
At the University of Northern Iowa, we have 20 to 25 applications that make it to that top level, to the review committee, and there is a committee that reviews and makes recommendations, and we approve 12 to 15 a year.
I just have a quick question.
Regent Johnson.
Is there a requirement on the number of years that a professor must have been with the university before being eligible for the professional development assignment? And is that the same throughout, or is that different throughout?
It is different at each institution, but we all have requirements, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that report? Okay, then we'll move on to the professional development requests for 2019-20.
Yes, thank you. So again, I present this item requesting for 2019-20 academic year professional development requests. We have 135 requests for PDAs for next year. Again, the guidance was 3% or fewer of the eligible faculty, so that it adds up to 2.7%, so we're under that. Generally, these requests are for a single semester. The full year option is available on some of these. However, when they do take the full year, there's a compensation adjustment that occurs. So it's not the full compensation if you do the full year of PDA. Projected costs for the coming year are lower than the prior 2 years, and this is generally done through what some things that Provost Curry was just sort of hinting at in terms of course management and the way that we manage course coverage. So costs have been actually pulled down for doing this for future years. But we do expect that very strong ROI. Again, it's a very stable expectation that there will be a lot of positive revenue generated through this process. So I present you the request.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Regent Johnson.
My apologies. One question, when a faculty member completes their professional development assignment, what is the follow-up that they go through to kind of reflect on their time and make sure that it was a productive time?
They're required to submit a report based on that, and again, that goes through the department head, the dean, and up to the provost's office. What you have in front of you and what we just passed is those reports from 2017-18.
Okay.
And then what we're doing is approving next year's PDAs, and then there are faculty who have PDAs right now that were approved next year. They will report on those next year. So there are standard
They go to the
reports.
department head and the dean, and okay, through that process. Thank you.
And it also becomes part of the faculty member's performance review for that year with the department chair. The accomplishments they may have had in submitting proposals or having proposals funded during that time period, as well as publications or modifications to their courses. Right.
Any other questions or comments? Then the request will be recommended for approval to the full board and will appear on the consent agenda reviewed by the board later today. Okay, great. Then our final agenda item today, we're going to have a joint meeting with the Campus and Student Affairs Committee. So I will ask Provost Johnson to call her meeting to order and invite, well, I'm already here, other committee members to the table so we can proceed with this.
Excellent. If the other members of the Campus and Student Affairs Committee could join us at the table, that would be excellent.
Who else? Okay. Hi. I welcome you all. And who is going to start?
Nancy, I will officially call the meeting of the Campus
Oh,
Student
you
Affairs
haven't.
Committee to order, and I'm going to begin by taking the roll. Regent Nancy Butker,
Present.
Vice President for Student Affairs at the University of Iowa, Melissa Shivers. Vice President for Student Affairs at Iowa State University, Martino Harmon. Vice President for Student Affairs at the University of Northern Iowa, Paula Knudsen. You'll have to press the green. Yeah, we're good. Assistant Administrator for Iowa School for the Deaf, John Kuhl, is unable to be with us today. And then we also have Associate Chief Academic Officer Jason Pontius.
Present.
Excellent. So I'll go ahead and forward that on to you.
I'm not sure who's starting. Rachel?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll just quickly introduce, we've asked the three folks that are joining us here today to speak on the university admissions process. So we have Kirk Kluver from the University of Iowa, we have Matt Kruger from the University of Northern Iowa, and we have Catherine Susky-Johnson from Iowa State University, and I'm just going to turn it right over to them.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. You had a chance to hear Jason Pontius's enrollment report yesterday, and I believe as a state we have a lot to be proud of. We live in a state with excellent secondary schools who prepare students for college and career, a state where students graduate high school at very high rates, often leading the country in those graduation rates, and a state where students looking to continue their education have excellent post-secondary options right here at home, right here in Iowa. And because of that, 87% of Iowans who go on to college choose to stay in the state of Iowa. And while the majority of our classes, our incoming classes, are Iowans, we do recruit and enroll students from outside the state and from around the world. And we believe that provides a diverse learning environment for our Iowans, and it helps us maintain our strong enrollment. So for fall 2018, the Regent institutions enrolled 12,514 new first-year students, 3,475 new transfer students. And I believe there's no greater example of a true campus-wide collaborative effort than the effort it takes to recruit, admit, enroll, and welcome a new class of students to campus each year. And I'm thankful for the support that I receive on my campus for our admission efforts, support from our faculty, our staff, our students, and the role they play in helping us achieve our enrollment goals. And I believe my colleagues from Iowa State and Northern Iowa would say the same. So I'll provide some context by introducing what's commonly referred to as the admissions funnel, and we'll provide a rudimentary timeline of our admissions processes, and then my colleagues will go on to highlight some specific initiatives. The blue arrows on the left side are the stages of the funnel: prospects, applicants, offers, accepts. Strategies are deployed at each stage of this funnel to ultimately arrive at an enrolled class on the 10-day census date. And the numbers in the funnel in this slide are combined between the three institutions. And then on the right side, it's a bit of a timeline for students who are applying for the fall 2019 term. So I think you can see that we are working with thousands, and in many cases hundreds of thousands, of prospective student contacts. And in the admissions setting, this is done through a CRM, a customer relationship management system. Each institution uses CRM tools to communicate with prospective students. And among other items, CRMs allow our institutions to track students' academic interest, their extracurricular interest, and other information that we follow is information related to their students' academic profile and application status. And ultimately, our goal is to communicate timely and pertinent information to students and their families about the college search, and to really help them understand the college admissions and the enrollment process. We acquire and populate our CRMs with prospective students through a number of sources, and those sources, I think, continue to grow each year, but the primary sources continue to be the testing agencies, ACT and the College Board. When students take the ACT or the SAT, they can opt in to having their information available for colleges and universities, and our institutions go out and purchase those records of students who we believe may be a good fit for our institutions, and then at that point they enter our communication flow. By definition, a prospect is a student who has shown active interest in our institutions, and they can become a prospect in many ways. A student may become a prospect because one of our staff members met them at their high school during a high school visit or a college fair, and they filled out an information card. A student who visits campus could become a prospect, or a student who sends us an official test score at the time of taking and registering for the ACT or the SAT. As prospects enter their senior year, we encourage application. And last year, applicants came from every county in the state of Iowa, every state, and over 100 countries from around the world. And while our application timelines vary a little bit from institution to institution, they generally open as early as June or July prior to the student's senior year, where we begin admitting students on a rolling, ongoing basis. And because of the Regent Admission Index and the transparent, objective criteria that are involved in making an admissions decision, I believe we have one of the most efficient systems in the country of admitting students. Most students, after application, will receive their decision in a matter of days and sometimes sooner. And I think it's important to note that one of the processes that we all abide by within the 3 Regent institutions is a process where students are self-reporting their academic information on their applications. So this is, I think, has become a real access issue, and we see more and more universities moving to self-reported academic information. When you were asking students to provide official transcripts and official test scores at the time of application, it can often lead to many incomplete applications, especially with underserved populations. And I think we're proud to say that the 3 Regent institutions have been leaders in the self-reported movement, and each and every year more and more universities from around the country have moved that direction. Once students decide to enroll, that's the point in which we are requiring official transcripts and test scores. So between our institutions last year, we made 43,000 offers of admission for the fall 2018 term. And after admission, many of our efforts become focused on helping students and families understand their next steps to our institutions. So we talk a lot about the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. We help students complete the FAFSA if needed. We talk about scholarship opportunities and award and package scholarships and financial aid. And oftentimes we'll conduct special events aimed at admitted students and their families to help them understand the next steps towards enrollment. Once a student decides they would like to attend, they move into the accept column, and they accept their admission by paying an enrollment deposit or an acceptance fee. And we abide by a code of ethics and professional practices that are set forth by our National Admissions Association that prohibits colleges from requiring, compelling, or incentivizing students to accept their offer of admission prior to May 1st. And because of that, May 1st is the national candidate reply date, which is a very big day in college admissions where students are often making their college choice at that time. So I think when we look at the big picture, one of the things that stands out is that this can be a very long engagement cycle. In some cases, we first meet students when they're in middle school through initiatives that our institutions create to build a college-going and college-ready culture in the state of Iowa. And in that case, our level of engagement and our level of outreach spans a number of years before they arrive on our campus. In other cases, that engagement may be more condensed, where the first time a student comes on our radar is when they apply for admission. So I think we serve the needs of many students and audiences, and because of the nature of that, we have to be very adaptable in our work. So this time I'm going to turn it over to Matt, and he'll talk a little bit more about some of our outreach efforts.
Sure. Thanks, Kirk. Your information gave some great details of many of the in-office operations that go on. One of the main ways... You'll need to pull it in front of your mouth. Is that better? There we go. One of the main ways to connect with prospective students is through intensive travel throughout the state of Iowa, as well as other states and internationally. When some of us started our careers in admissions and higher education, the term road warrior was often used for admissions counselors or staff members who did a significant amount of travel time. While this was before the age of the internet, websites, and online applications, the personal connections provided by face-to-face interactions are critical. Each of the Regents institutions has the state of Iowa and other states divided into service areas or territories that are assigned to specific admissions counselors and other recruitment staff members. This helps facilitate the relationship building, not just with the students and families, but also with the high school counselors who we work with each and every year. We visit nearly every high school in Iowa annually, and we invite Iowa high school counselors to participate in our counselor advisory boards. We also host workshops for Iowa community college advisors. And in the spirit of collaboration and in a good example to make things better for our colleagues on community college campuses, we know that it may be difficult for them to get away from their campuses each year, so we intentionally rotate the locations of those community college workshops each and every semester. For some events, we take turns, hosting a Regents table and provide a collaborative presence. Such events such as the Iowa School Counselors Association, the Iowa School Board Administrators, and others where we're present representing all 3 institutions. In addition to travel, we communicate heavily with prospective students through social media, text messages, and more conventional methods such as publications and letters sent through the mail. We also mix in some virtual visits via WebEx, Skype, or Zoom. We also host tens of thousands of students on our campuses each year. We all know and appreciate how the campus visit experience for many students and families is a pivotal moment for them in their college search and selection, and it's why we invest heavily in these efforts and the experience. When they are on our campus, they can truly experience the university and the institution and all that it has to offer, so that they can determine if it's the place that they feel they best belong for the next 4 years, or 2 years for many transfer students. Some visit with their families while others attend group visits that are sponsored through their high school or other organization. While the total last year in the left-hand column for recruiting the entering fall 2018 class and other younger students was very impressive, with over 100,000 total visitors, think closely about the visit experience as a whole. From checking in with admissions staff members, to receiving a presentation or meeting individually with an admissions counselor, to meeting with faculty or staff in various academic areas or financial aid, to the student tour guide who gives you your tour, and other people across campus. There's a minimum, in most cases, of at least 5 interactions and connections that students and family members are making during their visit experience. Those 5 interactions times 100,000 means that there's over 500,000 connections that go on our campus with people face-to-face, day-to-day throughout the year. That's very impressive. And this is just the visits that we know about. Many students and family members come back to campus to check out the campus a second or third time and on their own, and making their way without going through the office and getting a behind-the-scenes look. And they're still making those connections as well. It's these connections that help them determine if an institution is the right fit for them, which will ultimately lead them to making the best college choice decision and a greater likelihood of student success and degree completion. At the right on the screen that you see there is just a sampling of some of the events that we host on our campus each and every year. Were we to put all of these events that these Regents institutions that we perform each and every year, we could fill multiple slides. The list of these events 5 or 10 years ago would be very different than what they are today. And if we look forward into the future for 5 to 10 years ahead of us, the events that we offer may also be different. So we're constantly adapting to our populations as we continue to evolve and be more accessible for our audiences. Now I'll turn it over to Catherine.
Thank you. We're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about transfer students for a moment. Together, we enrolled 3,574 transfer students in fall 2018, and 2,099 of those were from Iowa community colleges. Transfer recruitment offers us a lot of opportunities for collaboration. The biggest opportunity is the Liaison Advisory Committee on Transfer Students, or LACS. This includes participants from each of our institutions, the board office, the Department of Education, and Iowa community colleges. And together we work on articulation policy and solving problems for transfer students and making the pathway clearer. We're all facing, I think it's worth noting, a significant challenge when it comes to transfer recruitment right now and transfer enrollment. There are really 2 main reasons for this. One, there's a continuing decline of transfer track students at the community colleges. So the number of available transfer students is going down. Plus, a lot of community college students are going directly into the job market because of the strong economy. So they're skipping that university step. So that's an issue that we're really facing right now. I'll wrap up with just some collaborative region initiatives. We've talked about several of them throughout the presentation. I think overall, the key is that we all work together to make sure students know what their options are in the state of Iowa. So in the last 2 years, we've partnered to create newspaper advertisements to save all of us a little bit of money. We know 17-year-olds may not read the paper, but their parents and grandparents probably do. And so we want to have at least our names out there in the newspaper. And so we've partnered to save money, but still have a strong presence around Iowa. Another example is a Regent-branded notebook and folder that we hand out to students around the state of Iowa. It does a couple different things. It keeps our universities front of mind for those students, so they're considering us, but it also lets them know about the RAI and the core courses, so they're well prepared to enter our universities upon graduation. As admissions professionals, it's our priority and really our responsibility to help students find the right fit for them. Now, we would love it if the right fit was one of the 3 public universities in the state of Iowa, because we know that if students go to school in Iowa, they're likely to stay in Iowa and contribute to the state for a long time to come. So that's really important to all of us. So we thank you for your interest in the admissions process, and we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Well, thank you for your great presentation. I love it that you work together. When you mentioned the decline in community college transfer students, you are tracking those so you know that those folks are going to, and that comes as a push for associate degrees as well in the state.
Yeah, we track that very closely, and it ties really directly to our transfer enrollments. So as the transfer track students drop off, so does our enrollment of transfer students.
Okay. Yep.
Just one quick question. Yesterday in our fall enrollment report, we heard about there was been a slight decline in our number of out-of-state students that we're bringing to our universities. Is there a specific plan that you all have in place to continue to try and attract these students while also maintaining the high percentage of students that are attracted in the state and keeping those in-state students a priority while also working with our partnering, I guess, neighboring states to try and attract some of those students as well? Because I think both are really important to make a successful university.
Well, that's a good point. I think are continuing our efforts to be very strategic in our out-of-state presence. And so I know many of us have regional representatives that live and recruit students in areas around the country. So the University of Iowa has 2 regional representatives in the Chicagoland, one in Dallas-Fort Worth, one in St. Louis, one in Southern California, and then one lives in the Des Moines area that handles the central Iowa. And so I think what we've seen is that the increase in competition in these areas in recent years has been something to see. Right now, I think in the Chicagoland, there are about 125 regional representatives that are living in the Chicagoland recruiting for their institutions. I think it's arguably one of the heaviest recruited metropolitan areas in the entire country right now. But we're doing more of the same, really encouraging specialized events for students to travel and visit our campuses. We're increasing the number of weekend events that we're offering on our campuses that might make it a little bit easier for students who are traveling from farther away. I know today alone we have an open house on our campus, and we have students from 19 different states that are represented. So we'll continue to do the things that we're doing to make sure those enrollments remain strong.
You know, at Iowa State, we were ranked as one of the top 5 institutions in the country for increasing our number of non-resident students, all while we maintained our strong service to the students of the state of Iowa. I think some of the leveling off has to do with the states around us and changes in those states, certainly. States like Illinois now are really fighting hard to keep their students. They're funding them through merit awards, through need-based awards. The schools are funding high-dollar scholarships, frankly, to keep those students in state. So that's going to change kind of our mix of students. So we're focusing on both populations, I guess, is the answer.
And I would just add that 90% of our freshman class typically at UNI are Iowa residents, so we do attract 10% of our freshmen from out of state, most notably the states of Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin. So having a deeper penetration in those markets and being very vigilant in compelling the uniqueness that UNI offers, while they may be accustomed to the regional comprehensives that might be available to them in their state, we feel that UNI offers a very special and unique experience that they might not be able to find in their own state. So being very vigilant and making sure what holds for them here in Cedar Falls and how we can rise above the others in their choice set.
And then I do have a follow-up question, not necessarily to that. I'm sure that there's some data or some information that students who actually attend a campus visit and visit the campus have this higher rate of applying and admitting and then officially or finally enrolling in the university. So with many of our how do you attract those students to come for those campus visits when we're dealing with large, first-generation low-income populations? How do we make that accessible and attainable to even get the first step foot on our campus and try and get them engaged in the college-going culture and that mindset?
I think Matt's point earlier that the campus visit has really evolved over the years, where even 10 years ago, there would just be 4 large open houses and that would be it. And the number of events that we do now continues to grow every year. We always joke admissions is great at adding things and really bad at taking things away. So we keep adding and adding and adding. I think we have a lot of niche programs that really try to cater to specific students and their needs and their interests that will draw them there beyond the larger open houses. So an example that we had on our slide was Medicine at Iowa. The admissions office has a wonderful relationship with the Carver College of Medicine. And within our systems, we know students who have expressed interest in health-related fields. And so we do programs in conjunction with the Carver College of Medicine. Some of them very focused. We did one last spring that was focused on rural Iowans interested in medicine, which I think is a compelling program for many students to come and learn about opportunities as an undergraduate and then what that might look like as a professional student. One thing that was mentioned on the slide too I think we've seen a real increase in community-based organizations and high schools bringing groups of students to campuses, and we've all gone out of our way to accommodate those groups. So one day it may be a group of 8th graders from a certain middle school. The next day it might be a chemistry class from a local high school. And so we have, I think almost every day, a group like that visiting our campuses that we're doing the best that we can to accommodate.
Great.
I think the only things I would add are some of the partnerships we have. We were able to partner with the Gear Up organization this summer and actually host a conference on our campus that was funded through their grant, which was a great partnership. We've also partnered with Des Moines Public Schools to provide buses for students to come to campus visits. And then finally, for those students who can't come as easily, we have our U-Visit tour, which is kind of a virtual tour online. So students can find out about our campus, see campus, learn more about that, kind of do a virtual tour before coming to campus.
And I would just add that we last year had just under 4,700 students that came and visited UNI through group visit programs. So we've had a strong history of providing this service to schools age children across the state, not just high school students, but also junior high and middle school. Certainly this time of year with the Iowa High School footballs playoffs in the dome right next door, that brings a wide variety of groups to campus as well too that may not see the campus through the admissions necessarily lens, but they're definitely getting a taste of the UNI campus. Lastly, I would also add the collaboration that has started at UNI this past semester with our UNIQ, the UNI Center for Urban Education, and Select Eastern Iowa Schools. The Panther Promise program has opened up the UNI campus visit experience to hundreds of more students that may not necessarily have had UNI on their radar. And we wanted to provide them a welcoming experience and show them all that we offer.
Great. I thank you all so much for your time and those responses.
Thank you. I just have one other comment. When I was doing the reading prep for the meeting, I noticed that the grade point average of students admitted was a lot higher than it certainly was when I came from Chicagoland to Iowa and stayed. You have any comment on that? Is that reflecting the college level classes that kids are taking, and is that making it so they can graduate in a more timely fashion and save some money, or any?
Well, I think there's a mix of things. I think, we have to acknowledge the potential of grade inflation, that some students have higher GPAs than they might have had in the past, because there's a lot of pressure on secondary schools from parents and families. So I think that's at least a small piece of it. But, from year to year, that's not necessarily something you're going to see over, that's more long-term. I think it is. I think students are better prepared. Students, especially in the state of Iowa, to Jason's presentation yesterday and the few things that Kirk talked about earlier, we just have really well-prepared students in the state of Iowa, and that is just such a blessing when we look at bringing in our classes and them being prepared to graduate in a timely manner. I mean, Iowa's doing a great job of preparing students for college, and I think that's a big piece of it. And ACT scores are going up too, and those can't be inflated, right? So those are standardized, and those scores are rising each year for our class as well.
So a question that we often asked back in the Education Committee in the Senate was on remediation. So what you're saying is we're not seeing as much of a need for remediation when students get here as we used to, or is that happening in the community colleges, or are we just doing better?
I think that would take a whole study, so I don't want to speak out of line. But I think, students are able to take college classwork through the PSEO program in Iowa. And so students are getting a taste of that college coursework, able to prepare for college in that way.
I would just add that as it relates to GPA, the RAI does a great job of factoring in all of the things that a student experiences in high school, their GPA, their test scores, the core classes they've taken, and if they provide a class rank now. However, the GPA is weighted most heavily, as it should be, because studies show time and time again the high school GPA, combined with the courses they've taken, is the best predictor of if a student is going to be successful, not just in being retained their first year, but ultimately in graduating with their degree. So, and I think speaking broadly, Iowa high schools do a phenomenal job of preparing college-going students for success at our 3 Regents institutions and other universities and colleges across the state and country.
Great. Yeah.
I'm just going to address the remedial rate question. The Iowa Post-Secondary Readiness Reports have been looking at remediation for math and English. And typically for the Regents, if you're looking at the combined, like a student who might need to take remedial classes in one of those, we're looking at about 2 to 3% of those students need to take a remedial course. It's considerably higher at the community college level, but just some different populations that are there. But that number has been going down over time.
Great. Glad to hear it. Yes. Thank you very much. A very interesting report. Keep up the good work.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, I think I adjourned first. Yes. So the Academic Affairs Committee, the next meeting will be February 27th. So happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas. Yeah, and the meeting is adjourned.